In early 2020, when the issue of the pandemic arrived on Jamaica's shores, it was Christopher Tufton who emerged as the face of Jamaica's pandemic response team. With the assistance of the Prime Minister, often taking leadership in terms of making announcement of curfews and explaining the reasons for Jamaicans to observe the government's health protocols as outlined under the Disaster Risk Management Act. It was also Christopher Tufton's team that took to communities and towns to promote the wearing of masks, among other measures to combat the spread of the pandemic. He was also leading from the front in 2020. His dependency was heavily on the health professionals for guidance and clarifications on all pandemic-related matters. And often Mr. Tufton warned and sometimes even appeared to be giving lectures to the Jamaican populace. He would rather use moral suasion, though, to get Jamaicans to protect themselves and their loved ones from the pandemic. His singular aim and mission was to keep all of the pandemic-related infections, hospitalizations, and loss of lives from this issue to a minimum in order to ensure that Jamaica's health infrastructure was not overwhelmed in any way. Jamaica and the rest of the globe are nearly 10 months into once in a century pandemic, and like the rest of the globe, Jamaica's potential of encountering and combating this issue remains a great challenge. The Christmas holidays and beyond will prove to be a great challenge for not just Jamaica, but other countries across the world. Tufton and the government led Jamaica through this critical phase, and of course, this will determine his final grade that is given to him by the Jamaican populace. For now, the worst seems to have passed, and we can applaud Mr. Tufton for having done extremely well in taking us through this extremely difficult health crisis. And as they continue to do so for the remainder of 2020 and for 2021, as the pandemic is still with us, we will hope that all Jamaicans will work together with Christopher Tufton and the Prime Minister, along with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, to ensure that Jamaicans remain safe, healthy, and that our health infrastructure is not overwhelmed in any way, so that it can function and continue to operate in a way that it can provide the necessary health assistance to the Jamaican populace and any other foreign national who may enter our borders and may be in need of assistance in terms of medical care. As Mr. Tufton was battling the global pandemic that was affecting Jamaica and the rest of the world, he had to be answering questions from the Jamaican populace and the People's National Party in regards to allegations about his integrity and the issues surrounding marketing and communication services which were being provided to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. In July 2020, Dr. Morris Guy had stated that if there was any truth to any of the allegations surrounding Christopher Tufton in relation to the marketing contracts, he would need Tufton to ascertain whether his position as the portfolio minister was used to steer or influence in part or whole those contracts that were awarded to that specific marketing company. He had said that at a minimum the public required to be aware whether those marketing contracts were awarded based on the established due process regime under the provisions of the country's procurement guidelines. He further went on to state that if it will amount to anything, if it were to be true, it would be considered cronyism, nepotism, and the abuse of public office, which would then necessitate an immediate investigation by either the Integrity Commission or the Auditor General's Department. Guy at the time, in summer 2020, called on Christopher Tufton to provide clarifications about the nature of the relationship between himself and the marketing company. He further went on to question whether the marketing company was responsible for the overall imaging and branding of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and at the same time promoting the personal brand of the minister. He also questioned the deliverables of the contracts and who was responsible for their implementation, asking whether it was the Health Ministry or the agency. One would hope that the public funds were not being misused to enhance in any way the individual brand or image and persona of the minister. This was what was questioned and queried by Dr. Maurice Guy. His claim was that the company, which was the preferred marketing and public relations agency for Chris Tufton, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica Moves, and the pandemic, among other health-related matters in Jamaica. In regards to the pandemic marketing contract, he asked the Ministry of Health and Wellness to state when the contract was initiated and what was the value. He also had queries whether due process was followed based on the government's procurement guidelines. He also had queries about the ministry in regards to the provision of details on the development of the pandemic app and its ownership. His question was, who developed the application, and was it in response to an open tender? When was it put to tender, and what was the level of responses? What role did the minister play in the selection of the successful bid? And was there an agreed budget for the maintenance of the application, and who was responsible for such maintenance support? According to Maurice Guy at the time, he was considering allegations in the public domain, and of course, the issues surrounding the marketing company being the preferred agency for the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and whether there was a conflict of interest involving the Minister of Health and Wellness. So again, in December, it was Dr. Maurice Guy again who came out against Dr. Christopher Tufton in regards to the Cornwall Regional Hospital and the delays that existed at that facility. According to Dr. Maurice Guy at the time, he stated that the minister must take full responsibility for all delays in the rehabilitation of the Cornwall Regional Hospital. His statement was that the minister made errors when he ascribed blame for the delay in the rehabilitation of the Cornwall Regional Hospital on the lack of capacity and technical knowledge of the local contractors in urging a case for foreign expertise. Minister Tufton should simply accept responsibility for the chain of failures, which resulted in the setbacks of the project and the waste of millions of public funds. This was the statement coming from Dr. Maurice Guy in response to the latest statement in regards to the delay, which was given by the minister, and as was stated that the delay is a function of the inexperience of the contractors that were put in place to complete the job. However, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about the situation and discussions that have been